I've always been very motivated by a challenge, and I was so young. I was just 16. Once I start something, I really like to go at it 100 and 150%. And that's what I did with the blog. I come from a family of workaholics. Everyone in my family, whatever they did, they became the best at it. Now I'm 32. I've started my own business. I like that ability to hopefully be known as someone who changed the narrative on a dying business. They have no idea what I do all day, every day. I am literally negotiating and hustling all day, every day. At some point in life, you just have to not care what others think and just do it, living a life of that kind of regret, of not trying.
Welcome to Cake for Dinner. This is not your everyday mom podcast. We laugh, we curse, we tell the truth, and we're here to ditch the perfection culture. Hi, friends. Before we jump into today's episode, I have something really special to share. If this podcast has ever made you laugh, made you feel seen, or reminded you that you're not alone in motherhood, I think you're going to love my new book, Cake for Dinner. This isn't a parenting manual. It's the stories I never thought I'd tell, the lessons I learned the hard way, and a reminder that none of us have to be perfect to be really good moms. If you've ever wondered if you're doing enough, this book is for you. Cake for Dinner is available for pre-order now on Amazon, and every pre-order makes a huge difference for a first-time author. If you'd like to support me and help get this message into the hands of more moms, I'd be incredibly grateful. Just search Cake for Dinner on Amazon or click the link in the show notes. Thank you for being here. Now, let's get to today's episode. Today, we're sitting down with Sydney Sadick. She started a fashion blog as a teenager and built it into a magazine, a best-selling book, and a career interviewing some of the biggest names in the world. We're talking ambition, hustle, entrepreneurship, and what it takes to create your own opportunity. Sydney Sadick, welcome to Cake for Dinner.
Thank you. Now I'm craving cake after seeing all of your cute branding.
Well, it's always a good idea over here.
Yeah.
If you're okay with it, we'll just jump right into some questions.
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So you started a fashion blog as a teenager. I work with teenagers, so that's kind of what originally really attracted me to your story. What was it about you at that age that made you willing to put yourself out there and go after something so big?
You know, with me, I've always been very motivated by a challenge. And I was so young. I was just 16, but growing up in a New York City private school environment, it was really all about where you're going to college. That was the conversation that was starting at that time. And I was never really like anyone who I went to school with. Everyone went to sleepovers on the weekends, they went to summer camp during the summer. And I was always very much kind of aloof in that way. I liked being with my family. I liked being in the comfort of my home. And I was just a very sort of routine type of person. But my mom started to really honestly get nervous that maybe I wouldn't be appealing to many colleges if I didn't have some typical chill child experiences. So she's like, I think you really need to experience what it is to get out of the house and be independent on your own. And I guess I sort of thought to myself, well, if I'm going to do that, I better do it in the A+ way. And so I was like, well, what are the options? I'm definitely not going to camp. And my mom's like, well, what if you went, she didn't say this, but I'm saying this, to nerd camp? And why don't you go to a college? And she suggested the Harvard summer program in Massachusetts. And I was like, that sounds good. I love Legally Blonde. If Elle could do it, Sid could do it. And I got into the program, and it was time to select classes. And I just naturally gravitated towards journalism courses.
Mhm.
It just was the only thing that resonated with me. And so I took those classes, and one of the assignments for the one was to start your own blog. And I happened to create a pretty popular one in the community when I was there. And then I continued it when I got back home to finish high school in New York. And then I even continued it when I was in college at GW. So for me, once I start something, I really like to go at it 100 and 150%. And that's what I did with the blog. And I just rolled with it and tried to make it the biggest thing that I could at that time.
So many of my listeners are moms. What do you think that your mom did right to sort of contribute to your interest or make this happen?
I feel like when I was growing up, my mom knew when not to push me and let me just be me, and then when to step in. And because I knew that she was so tactful in those pushing moments, I knew that if she must have really felt super strongly about it.
Mhm.
And I think change is uncomfortable. It's something that a lot of kids have issues with. I had a lot of issues with it. So I think the fact that my mom also presented, like, an opportunity, and it wasn't just like, "You should," "This is the only path," but she was more like, "This is what I would suggest. If you don't like it, I'll give you other options." That's, I think, what resonated well with me, and it was Harvard. It
Right.
wasn't
I
like,
love
"Go
that,
find dirt."
she really saw you, it seems, like, sort of like what you needed and what direction might work for you. I love that.
Yep.
Um, you've built an incredible career. When you look back, where do you think that grit and drive came from?
I come from a family of workaholics. My mom started off in fashion and merchandising. She then went on to run my father's successful dermatology and med spa practices around the New York area. And then she became the first CEO of a medical technology company based in Israel in her field and was a powerhouse. My dad rose to be probably the most prominent dermatologist in the industry. My grandparents, my grandfather was a big real estate developer where he was from. My grandmother didn't work a traditional job, but she was really successful and known in philanthropy. So everyone in my family, whatever they did, they became the best at it. And so whenever people ask my parents, like, "Oh, you should be so proud," or "Are you so proud?" They don't react as most parents do. And they're like, "Yes, I'm so proud." They're like, "No, we expected it of her because that's what we expect of our family to work
Mm.
really hard, and to not be the type of people who things are given to. We really like to be scrappy and hustle." So I definitely think, my grandparents' generation and then down to my parents, even my dad's father who, never made it in life, but he was a seamstress at a very famous coat company and he saved every penny and he was very humble and didn't have money, but he like saved so much because that was his goal was you know, to save whatever he could and to do the best that he could. So just seeing like that type of story of someone who didn't have much in my family but made the best of it to my parents who did, that pushed me a lot.
I really like that idea that, like, most kids rise to their expectations, and that's sort of what it was to be in your family, so it's such a good example for moms, but also for young people. You've interviewed everyone from Tom Brady to Kim Kardashian. Was there a moment when you thought, wow, this is actually happening? Like sometimes in those particular interviews, what is that like?
It's so strange. I still don't believe it's happening now what I do. I'm, like, super humble. I feel like I'm very also jaded because I've been around the personalities that you've mentioned since I was literally a child. At 16, you are a kid. But the Tom Brady experience was, I mean, amazing. I'm sure in that moment, I think I was 18. I was, following him for a full day with UGG. He was doing a campaign for them in a Hollywood Hills, mansion in LA, and it was really just me and him and his team, and I got to truly spend time with this person, and he was really lovely on top of being incredibly attractive, and, I think that when you're working towards real success, and success is defined differently for everybody, you don't necessarily internalize those wins, even whether they're small or whether they're big. And my team today, as an owner of a magazine, they still yell at me all the time. Like my one videographer, Lily, and she came here from Ukraine. She's been here for 5 years. She's like, "Do you understand what you built?" And I said, I don't. Like, I guess it's the money I see that comes hitting that I'm like, I guess I'm doing something right. Um, but no, there's never been a real moment where I'm like, oh my God. And maybe I would be a more not a happier person, but maybe I would be more like everybody else if I did celebrate those wins, but for me, I have very different standards of success, and being in conversation with a celebrity is wonderful, but it didn't necessarily mean to me like, "Wow, I've made it."
Right, right. I guess it's like, what do you think your why is? Like, what sort of drives you and gets you up in the morning?
I think when I was in my 20s and I was interviewing a lot of celebrities and I was on the Today Show, E! On all these morning shows multiple times a week for several years, I think it was definitely fame at that point. Like, people pretend they're on Instagram, TikTok, they don't wanna be famous. No, like, if you're putting yourself out there, there is some part of you, right, that
Right.
wants fame,
Yes.
which is fine. There's absolutely 0 wrong with that. Now I'm 32, I've started my own business. For me, it's really about being motivated by this idea of success as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. So being able to say that I've impacted the media industry, an industry, particularly print, that everyone says is dying, but we're only growing. I like that. I like that ability to hopefully be known as someone who changed the narrative on a dying business. And so, is there some fame that comes with that? Yes, I guess, naturally, organically, but I'm really motivated to make change in my industry and to give young girls like me who paid a lot of money to go to journalism school, to go to programs like Harvard, who spent so many of my years watching The Devil Wears Prada and dreaming of this career in media and on television, because even that part of media is dying, hope that you can still live out those professional dreams in media.
And what were you doing before that put you in front of the celebrities, and what are you doing specifically now?
Yeah. So after my blog, I went on and I attended GW, George Washington University School of
Mhm.
Media and Public Affairs, and I had lots of great internships, and one of them was at the Daily Front Row. So that was the Fashion Week magazine. So they really threw me in very quickly. Like, if you are a student who's interning, prove yourself, be a big fish in a small pond, because you can really give yourself a lot of opportunity through that. So they quickly kind of noticed my skill set, and they were putting me on the red carpet of the Met Gala, the
Right.
Grammys, the CFDA Awards. I was the youngest one there, and I met tons of people through those opportunities. And from there, my byline started becoming really recognized because I was the one handling this content in these interviews. So then it felt really natural as someone who also studied broadcast, to start pitching myself. And I found a TV agent, a manager took a chance on me, and they started putting me on shows to comment on what celebrities were wearing. And that
Mhm.
morphed into talking about what fashion trends are, of the moment, and how women can attain these trends at any budget. And my TV career just really started taking off. So I left my 9 to 5 job at the Daily Front Row that started as an internship. I freelanced for them during the rest of college, and then I became a full-time editor. So I was there for nearly 10 years in an on and off capacity, and then wanted to take that chance on TV. But then TV really changed during COVID. So after being on Good Morning America and Today and E! All the time, TV shut down, and I had to figure out a plan B. So during COVID, my celebrity journey transformed into a daily Instagram live show, and I hosted a show called Lunchtime with Sydney, and I interviewed about 600 celebrities every day for 2 years during the pandemic. And
Wow.
it was a real thing that people were watching every single day. We had so many viewers, and now it almost feels like a distant memory, and I forget to talk about it sometimes, but it really is what saved me during COVID, connecting with celebrities and making people feel like they were less alone during lunch, which used to be my networking time, going out for lunch with different people. And then that show, after 2 years, it just the nature of media again changed, and I was like, "I think this is time to end." And I started my own magazine. I'd worked for the Daily Front Row, like I said, who had a Hamptons magazine that I helped launch with them. I worked there for years. I worked at Hamptons magazine, I worked at Oprah magazine, and then I just thought, "I'm done doing this for everybody else. It's time to do it for me." And now I get to work with celebrities with my own publication, and it's the most rewarding part of the story for me.
And what's your publication called in case anyone's listening and they want to check it out?
My magazine is called Spotlight. We are a luxury lifestyle publication focused on the communities of New York City, the Hamptons, Palm Beach, and Miami. And we print 8 issues a year. We are super popular in our markets, and it's been really fun to build this.
What an amazing story. One of the things I really like about it is I feel like I'm older than you. I'm 52 and I feel like watching a lot of young people come up, they're sort of enamored by this overnight sensation, overnight success idea. I think that's portrayed on social media and you're someone who clearly worked their way through and up the ladder and I think it's super important to highlight that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'll be honest, I have feel like I've the moment that I started really making money, I feel like I started losing friends. They see nice things, they assume you're married, they assume family, that someone else did those things for you, and I do them 100% for myself, and so, I think especially the newer people in life, they think, "Oh, yeah, like, this is so easy, they must have just done this overnight." I mean, you don't I know don't live in the Hamptons in New York, but I mean, it is so competitive here. There are like 12 magazines of big companies, smaller companies. Every year now since I launched Spotlight, there are these independent people who aren't trained journalists, who don't have the background, but see what we built with Spotlight and have now launched their own publications. And they think it's so easy, and then they'll disappear the next year because they realize, like, oh, like, yeah, this is not just easy. Like, you have to be able to know how to brand, know how to write, know how to sell advertisements. Like, it's a real multifaceted career. So, correct. Anyone who makes it look so easy, yes, it should look like we've done it overnight, but I have been working for almost 18 years,
Yeah.
24/7.
Even this podcast, I mean, I've only been at it a year, but, it's really going
Yeah.
well, but it's like it's a hustle,
Yeah.
there's a lot of time and effort and also a lot of learning involved. And I think it's a really important to highlight that, um, for women, but also younger women coming up, that are trying to, like, navigate this stuff. Um, people see the magazine covers and celebrity interviews. What's the part of the journey that they don't see?
They have no idea what I do all day, every day, which is meeting with the biggest brands in the country, in the world, selling brand partnerships,
Mm.
employing multiple people who are in their 60s, who have been laid off from huge magazine work, who need work, who now work for me, who's half their age. Um, I am literally negotiating and hustling all day, every day, and making money, and I really believe that people think, and I've heard it through the grapevine of people, that there's investors in what I do, that maybe I've had a loan from family. I've never taken $1 from anybody for this business. I was very lucky when I started that brands knew me from the other parts of my career that I described to you and took a chance on my publication and signed on without seeing it. So, it's been a very unusual, I think, trajectory, and, yeah, it's that daily grind of
Yeah.
selling yourself, selling your magazine, selling a dying concept is wild, and, I don't even think, like, especially the people in my personal life even can understand it unless you're my husband or mother. I don't think they would probably get it.
Do you mentor at all younger youth that are trying to sort of come up and be interested in business or
Yeah, I definitely during COVID, I spent a lot of time mentoring. There were,
Mhm.
tons of people who would just reach out to me for advice, but then I really took a couple of them under my wings and would meet with them each week. And I try to do it. I have wonderful interns who work with me, and I always say to them, listen, you're here, okay, to learn, but you're here to also work. And through work, you do learn. And um, I think anyone who works for me would say that I'm a nice boss, but I'm a tough boss, and especially to those younger girls, because I think a lot of them think that things are handed to you when they're not.
Yes.
But I love mentoring. I'm always there, to give advice to the next generation. And I want the next generation to thrive. And I want them to understand that a career is not just on social media, that, we live in an amazing country with amazing career opportunities. And we need to get out of this notion that the only way to create success and fame is through Instagram and TikTok. And
Mhm.
so, despite me having a nice following on there, that's a side accessory, that's an added value, and I think, especially for women to protect themselves, they need to always have a backup plan, and that's something I always try to advocate to the younger women and men who I speak to. You never know what's going to happen in careers. You just heard my story. COVID happened, things change, media changes. You should always have other ideas and other opportunities going on in the background.
Yeah, I also this conversation leads me to think of one thing. I don't have this written down, but so I wrote a book that's coming out soon, and in the book, it one of the questions I pose is, can you manufacture grit? So can you raise a resilient kid in in a comfortable world? And you talk about being raised a little more privileged, right? Going to private schools, but you have maybe the most grit and hustle of anybody I've interviewed. And so how do you think that works? Because I think parents raising kids now, because I grew up with no money and I attribute most of my hustle to that. But it's an interesting phenomenon, and I think so many parents today are raising kids with more resources and wondering, shit, how am I gonna get these kids to be gritty when they have everything?
Yeah, it's such a good point. Listen, my husband came from absolutely nothing, like the poorest of the poor. So we have a really opposite
Yeah.
background. And he actually says, he's like, most people think that like you have to be poor to have the grit. But he says what you said. He goes, you and your brother, like, you're the most gritty, hustling people I know. So I really think it's not about money, no money. It's not about that. It's about ambition. It's about directing your kids to know what it means to have purpose. I think a lot of parents also just invest in the tutors and the academics, but academics will only get you so far. I was super educated. My family's very educated. My dad's, like I said, a top doctor. He's a professor at Cornell, but like that doesn't mean anything today. I think parents need to really instill what working is. I worked at a clothing store when I was 15 every day for a full summer. I had moms coming in being like, "Is there something going on in your family that you need to be working?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "I like making money." Like, how cool is it that I get to make $500 a week and it not be from my parents and I get to do whatever I want with it? Like, you need to instill that in your kids. I mean, today, I'm so honest, I'm the only one of my girlfriends who has a career, which is
Mm.
partially why I have issues now relating to my friends because,
Yeah.
like, it's different and there's nothing wrong with it. Life
Mhm.
is about choices, but you can really tell your parents are your role models as kids. And parents need to really understand it. My friends who don't work, their moms never worked. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just different. My
Mhm.
brother, who is 10 years younger than me, who just graduated from George Washington in their real estate program, is I swear, the only one of all of his friends right now who has a job and started a week after graduation the same way that I did. And he literally is killing it. He's working at the top firm. He just won this huge competition where his design is going to be on the side of a Miami building. I mean, like, he is like me. He likes nice things, all the things, but he works so freaking hard. So, you as a parent are very much the role model to your child,
I
and
really, really love
it's
that.
real.
And you did speak in the beginning about your grandmother being very involved in philanthropy. Did that pass down through the family? Like, was your mom into that? Are you into that? Did that contribute at all?
Everyone says I'm like her. Everyone says that, it skipped generations. My grandmother was super social. She was the chair of, like, every major charity. She raised money with the Clintons when Bill was running, was very involved with Hillary. So, I would say that my mother does an amazing job at trying to carry on the legacy of her and giving back to the causes that were really important to her and my grandfather. Like, that's her purpose. Is It's not about my mother. She wants to just have their legacy live on. But my grandmother's nature of, yes, being involved in so many organizations, I am involved. We do lots of different events where I try to give back to charities. I co-chair a lot of events in my communities. Yes, that definitely came from her, and the shopping addiction came from her too, for sure.
Well, if you're gonna shop like that, you gotta work like that, right? So it's it's good that you have them both. You've spent time around some incredibly successful people. What's something you've learned from them that surprised you?
Something I've learned from the people I've been around that surprised me. Well, I think that most of these people, the celebrities, they don't even really look at themselves as famous,
Mhm.
you know? I think that they just look at themselves as regular people who are successful at what they do, but they don't look at themselves as truly famous. I mean, we just had a cover party with Hilaria Baldwin on the cover.
I interviewed her. She
That's
was
amazing.
yeah, she was so, so, so nice. I
She's
mean,
great. Love her.
amazing.
We had a cover party with her, and uh her husband Alec just called me during the party. He's like, "I'm running late. I'm coming off a flight from Madrid. Is it okay if I show up in this outfit?" I'm like, "Of course, Mr. Baldwin. You're Mr. Baldwin." He's like, "No, no, but really, like, I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to embarrass Hilaria." And I mean, I've never met Alec Baldwin before, and he didn't have his people call me. He called me directly from his cell phone and was like, "I want to speak to this woman." So that's what I'm saying, that even the biggest of celebrities, I think at the
Mhm.
end of the day, really do understand that they are real people. And
And they wanna be treated as such. I wrote a, whole Substack about her, but not about her celebrity or any of those things. I wrote it because I flew to New York to interview her. He arrived, she couldn't have been any nicer, and at the end of the interview, when the cameras were turned off, I
yeah,
was in a hurry to get back to the airport, and, New York, it's like the podcast studio was, like, this big, and the little stairway up was, like, this narrow little thing, and she, as a mom of 7, I think could see I was, like, a little frantic to get back, and she just, like, picked my suitcase up and just started she's about this big, and she just starts, like, tearing down the stairs, like, "Come on, come on." And I was just like, that to me said so much more about her than any of the questions that I asked.
totally. And you go into an interview with someone like that where everyone's expecting you to, you know, go for it a certain angle because of what people think. And I'm like, that's an example of like the most misunderstood human that exists. Like, truly,
Ever.
right?
Ever.
Like, I do
Yes.
believe she's one of the nicest, genuinely people. I do. I agree with you.
100%, and I just actually flew to LA to interview Jenny Garth, a very similar thing. I don't think she's misunderstood, but
Yeah.
just her delivery and when she walked in and just how just humble, it's really nice because I do think you have some misconceptions going into some of those interviews.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's nice when that happens.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of women have big ideas but hesitate to put themselves out there. What's your advice for women who want to build something of their own?
I'm sure, you must talk about this a lot on your podcast because you've done it too, but I think it's about just really not caring what other people think.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people are afraid to take risks, like starting your own podcast or starting your own business and magazine because you're afraid what people are going to say and what they're going to think of you. But at some point in life, and I'm not perfect at it, but I try to do it, you just have to not care what others think and just do it.
Which is so hard, especially in, just this comparison culture and social media, although it has some wonderful attributes. I mean, you meet people you wouldn't have met otherwise. But I do think if you're not careful, you can slip into that.
You can. But to me, it's like, would you rather look back at life and think, okay, I did this and I may be, annoyed a few people or people didn't understand me or just have not taken the risk at all. Like, to me, that's what's uncomfortable, is living a life of that kind of regret, of not trying.
Regret. Do you have as a closing question, do you have any daily things that you do to keep a positive mindset or a growth mindset?
Yeah, I need to be honest with you. I really need to. Yeah, I feel like that's something I really struggle with. I feel like, um, I'm not the best at those things, honestly. Like, I feel like I get up, I'm a little anxious each day, and it's really not about work. I'm just anxious in general. For me, I'm in a different phase of my life where I'm 32, I got married, I'm started my own business, the COVID pandemic happened, I bought a home, I'm in the time of my life where you're supposed to be having children. Like, there's everything in terms of life change happening around me, and that makes me really anxious because you realize at a certain point after you've been a kid for so long in your 20s, you kind of are still a kid, that life is
Mhm.
really not in your control, but my career is. Everything else sort of isn't, but my career is. And so I noticed that that's what I do every day is I just work like crazy. I get up as early as I possibly can. I finish as late as I can and I just work, and it's not healthy. I know it's not healthy. I know I need to find ways to be more calm in other ways, but I haven't figured out the solution yet, and I don't know if a real serial entrepreneur can do that. I
Right.
wish I could meditate.
That's a good question because part of how you get to where you've gotten includes that in the equation, right? I will just, say that, it only gets better, and as you move into your 50s, you just land, 30s and 40s are more striving, and I think that's the way it's supposed to be. I had a kid at 40, and it was delightful because I was very settled, you
Right.
know? Um, my last question is, what's next for you?
Well, this is our Super Bowl season in the Hamptons. I mean, you should come to the Hamptons, see what it's all about. Come to our events. I mean,
I
this is
would
our
love to.
5-year anniversary of the magazine, so I
Mm.
host about 15 events between May and September. We print 5 issues between May and September. So in our market of the Hamptons and New York City, like, this is our season right now, so all eyes are kind of on us. By the time this comes out, this will have already happened, but next week is our biggest issue ever at 100 pages, and we have Brooke Shields on the cover, and we're
Wow.
having a big party with her, and, what's next is continuing to be really good at what I'm doing now. I've realized that everyone in their 20s basically wants really quick success, and that's not necessarily the best. So for me now at 32, it's about building slowly, and that's why I think I've been able to sustain a business is we're 5 years in, we've done a lot, but it's not like I've expanded so beyond quickly. I'm doing what is a lot, but what I know is reasonable. So I hope that we can make bigger issues of the magazine. I can, um, at some point, potentially expand to another market. But right now we're in 4 and it's kind of enough. And for once in my life, I don't have a this is what I want next. I'm really happy where I am. And sometimes,
I mean, that's wonderful. I just wanna say thank you, not just for coming on, but for doing what you do. I think it's so important to highlight hustle and, you're a great example of the joy that comes from real hard work and
thank
commitment. If people want to see the magazine, hear more about you, or reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can check out my Instagram, Sydney Sadick, and then Spotlight. You can see our digital version of the magazine at spotlighthamptons.com. There's a little print section where you can flip through our flip book. And yeah, I am active on social as much as I can be, and we all want to be, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much, Sydney.